Now, your Storm Team 7 forecast first.
Good evening, everybody. A hot day, a sunny day. Watching some showers in Tennessee, trying to make a run at the mountains. Most of that will fizzle out, but there will be a slight chance of a couple showers near the North Carolina-Tennessee border as we go through the evening. Outside of that, mostly clear. 89 now at GSP. It's 84 in Asheville. We'll fall through the 80s this evening. 77 by midnight, lower 70s tomorrow morning in the upstate. 70s eventually in the mountains, turning into 60s by tomorrow morning. Should see quite a bit of sunshine initially tomorrow, but we may see some pop-up storms. Still going to be hot, though. We'll take a look at that in the forecast for your rest of the weekend. Coming up as 7 News at 7 starts now.
Live and local for Carolina's family. This is 7 News at 7.
Tonight at 7, an upstate school superintendent and a college-bound football player killed in a crash just days before the start of a new school year. The latest on the investigation and reaction as communities mourn a loss. Plus, a former Asheville police officer who was caught on camera beating a black man for jaywalking has entered a guilty plea. We will take a close look at his punishment. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Tonight, a former Asheville officer pleaded guilty to beating a jaywalker this morning. Case drew national attention after video of the incident was leaked to the media. Well, now the former officer has been facing felony charges and possible prison time, and instead, under the plea deal, Christopher Hickman will spend a year on supervised probation. As our Ben Hoover reports, the punishment has some worried about a backlash over what they see as a lenient sentence.
The plea deal that Christopher Hickman struck falls under a new restorative justice program. It's a process with the hopes of bringing healing, understanding, and hopefully some forgiveness in cases like this. The DA says that this is the first time it's ever been applied to a police brutality case, and one community activist is taking issue with the way it was handled.
It was a community that was angry. There were community meetings where there were tears.
That anger in Asheville, D. Williams with the NAACP says turned to distrust in police.
You just did it again.
After this body camera video from August 2017,
Put your hands behind your back. I just told you.
showing a white officer shocking and hitting a black man with his fists came to light. Officer Christopher Hickman was charged with assault by strangulation, assault inflicting serious injury, and making threats. 2 years later, a deal announced Friday by the Buncombe County District Attorney. Hickman pleads guilty and spends 1 year on probation.
Now, you realize this is the first time restorative justice has ever been used by our district attorney's office. To top that off, this is the first time in the United States that restorative justice has ever been used when a police officer was involved and seen on film beating a suspect. And just keep in mind that that suspect happened to be black. So it is highly unusual.
Restorative justice involves the ex-officer and the assault victim, Johnny Rush, meeting face to face, something the DA says already happened, where Hickman took responsibility for his actions and apologized. The goal, the DA says, is to bring healing to both parties. But D. Williams believes this deal didn't consider a third party.
It's just created more community distrust.
If Hickman fulfills the conditions of the deal, his felony charges get dropped and possibly expunged.
I think Mr. Hickman was the preeminent concern of this whole restorative justice movement. And I'm just afraid this gentleman will go somewhere else, put a badge on, and hurt someone else.
Williams says she plans to take her issues with this Hickman plea deal to the mayor of Asheville and other city officials in the coming days. Reporting in downtown Asheville, Ben Hoover, 7 News.
Williams believes the $650,000 settlement Rush reached with the city last summer, plus his arrest on drug charges months after the beating, may have influenced how the plea deal came about. After the hearing, Rush himself had no comment. The father of an unarmed black man killed in Ferguson, Missouri 5 years ago today wants that case reopened. Mike Brown was shot and killed by a white officer named Darren Wilson. Wilson was not charged.
My son was murdered in cold blood with no remorse and no medical treatment. Mike laid in the street for 4.5 hours. As he laid there, he was dehumanized to demand someone to look at the case.
You probably remember when I just mentioned the name of the town, Ferguson, that this sparked national protests. The city eventually paid Brown's family $1.5 million. We have new information now out of Columbia involving the investigation into racist videos and threats made against a private school. Cardinal Newman says a second student connected to the videos has been expelled. The school held a forum last night for parents a week after the videos surfaced. In them, a 16-year-old boy uses racist language and makes threats towards African Americans. Richland County deputies say that student's been arrested and charged with making threats. The school says the teen was not expelled, but withdrew from school instead. After the murder of more than 24 people in El Paso and Dayton, eyes have now turned to Congress. And at the state level, several lawmakers have started a call for action. Georgia Reed Godfrey spoke to a city leader in the Midlands today, making a call for local change.
South Carolina lawmakers have yet to pass legislation to reform gun laws in the state, but local leaders are now taking matters into their own hands.
Heartbreaking, tragic, sad, and just all too common.
Columbia Mayor Steve Benjamin is one of many policymakers calling for a change in the wake of the mass shootings in Texas and Ohio. The Columbia mayor is bringing 3 ordinances to City Council for consideration. One proposed ordinance expands protection orders.
And allow a judge to evaluate the situation, and if in fact they determine that someone is a danger to themselves or to the public, to remove firearms from that home for a period of time.
Another proposal reinforces gun-free zones and keeping firearms 1,000 feet away from a school. The third ordinance being proposed defines hate crimes locally.
So many of these shootings, particularly the El Paso one, influenced by someone hating someone because of the color of skin or their race or their religion, ethnicity.
Mayor Benjamin says those 3 ordinances will come up for a reading at the next City Council meeting, which is scheduled for August 20th. In Columbia, Georgia Reed Godfrey, 7 News.
South Carolina lawmakers have plans to file additional bills at the state level to limit access to firearms, and hate crime bills may also be up for discussion. Tonight, Carolina's family is mourning the loss of an upstate school superintendent. She was killed in a car crash. 7 News is in Abbeville as the many people who revered Dr. Betty Jo Hall remembered all the joy she brought to her job and to that district.
Dr. Hall was by all accounts loved and respected. The news of her death has left the tight-knit community of Abbeville stunned and saddened. In a touching tribute this morning on Facebook, the Abbeville School District informed its 2,700 students and hundreds of teachers about the devastating loss of their beloved superintendent. It read, quote, "Dr. Betty Jo Hall used the wings she earned on this earth to soar to be with our Lord."
It's devastating to us. She was such an inspirational leader. So revered by not only our community and our workforce, but throughout the state.
Skip Hopkins, the Director of Student Services, says this morning State Superintendent Molly Spearman came to the Abbeville School District to offer condolences and support for a woman who had served as an educator for nearly 40 years. Thursday evening, Highway Patrol says Hall was driving on Highway 72 in Chester with her husband when a car crossed the center line and hit her head on. The driver of that car, 18-year-old Savion White, also died in the crash. He was a football player at South Point High School in Rock Hill. Brad Evans, the school board vice chairman, says her husband Wally told him they were on their way to a shag event when the crash happened.
I was able to go see him this morning. He's, of course, hurting, as all of us are. He is alert and just sad.
Monday, administrators and teachers had planned to gather for a celebration with a motivational speaker. Instead, principals and teachers will gather in their respective schools for a more subdued meeting with a moment of silence.
She's irreplaceable. Someone can definitely step into the position, but there'll never be a Betty Jo Hall here at Abbeville County School District.
There'll be a special board meeting Monday to discuss how the district will move forward. One thing's for sure, filling her shoes will be no easy task. In Abbeville, Diane Lee, 7 News.
There will be no doubt several ways in the coming months the community still plans to honor Dr. Hall. We'll keep you posted as we learn what those are. Some, in fact, started tonight, just a few moments ago. A moment of silence held in her honor at the start of the annual Abbeville High School Jamboree. You see people here gathered. We're told Wally Hall is still recovering at Spartanburg Regional. There's a 9-year-old boy who disappeared from the YMCA Camp Greenville, but he has been found safe now. Matthew Yarbrough was found with minor bumps and bruises at about 7 o'clock this morning. He was with a small group when they say he wandered away from the campground yesterday. 60 people were out looking for him for about an hour before they called for help.
Yesterday we had activated our drones, our canines, our bloodhounds. We had air support. We had roughly 130 participants from various agencies, which we will name here shortly later, who participated in the search.
Law enforcement says Matthew was resourceful, drinking from the river to stay hydrated and covered himself in leaves to try and stay warm overnight. A search is underway for a second suspect tied to a shooting in an upstate apartment complex. Greenwood police say Latronzo Waldrop is wanted for 7 counts of attempted murder. The Index Journal reports Waldrop and Gregarious Calhoun were involved in a shooting at the Cardinal Glen Apartments in June. 2 apartments filled with people were hit with bullets. Nobody was hurt, but Calhoun has already been arrested and charged. Greenville police are trying to find the person who held up a Sonic restaurant at gunpoint this morning on North Pleasantburg. Police say the man, do we have his picture here, pulled out a gun and then took money out of the safe. He was last seen running south. I know we have his picture. Go to WSPA.com, and here's a look at it. We'll show it to you. A few hours early, authorities say someone robbed a gas station just down the road from that Sonic. About 5 o'clock last night, someone held up the Citgo on North Pleasantburg. Officers and police dogs searched for that guy, couldn't find him. So if you know anything about either crime, Crime Stoppers number is 23-CRIME. Investigators say human trafficking is a growing problem in our area, and a hospital system here is working to teach their staff how to spot the signs. 7 News reporter Nicole Ford has the story.
You may wonder what a hospital can do to stop human trafficking, but actually this is where most victims end up before law enforcement even knows a crime is happening in their community. The nurses, doctors, and medical staff in emergency rooms see victims of human trafficking more often than you'd think. Bon Secours St. Francis spent the last 6 months creating this training video to teach their staff to spot signs of trafficking.
You know, let's face it, most of our staff have children of their own. And to see a child come in this situation, or a young person that's coerced into a lifestyle that it's not of their choice, to be able to make that intervention is just as powerful as it is to save somebody's life from a medical condition.
A preview of the video will be shown to hundreds of community members at Bon Secours' annual Human Trafficking Symposium on August 23rd. Then it will be rolled out to the South Carolina Hospital Association later this year. In Greenville, Nicole Ford, 7 News.
Nicole mentioned that symposium on the 23rd. The city of Greenville's proclaimed August 23rd Human Trafficking Awareness Day. All the information you need is posted over at WSPA.com right now. Still ahead on 7 News, a man arrested and charged after he plowed through a Walmart filled with customers on a golf cart. You'll hear from the witnesses right after the break.
The owner of a Western North Carolina gravestone business is behind bars for taking people's money and failing to fulfill orders. I'm Stephanie Borman with that story next.